Disclaimer. We are two regular guys who love to talk Bone Thugs and Harmony. We do not represent Bone Thugs or any Bone affiliate. We are also not Bone Thugs experts. The views and information you hear in this podcast may be based on personal opinion. Please feel free to leave corrections and clarifying information in the comments. And enjoy.
Straight off the motherfucking internet. Two true hosts talking about the double Glock. Cecil, Johnny. Kick that shit, Feenics.
Beyond the harmony for the fans, we celebrate. Uploading the videos every Thursday, so join us. Beyond the harmony for the fans, we celebrate. Uploading the videos every Thursday, so join us. Beyond the harmony for the fans, we celebrate. Uploading the videos every Thursday, so join us. Beyond the harmony for the fans, we celebrate. Uploading the videos every Thursday, so join us.
Now let's rock the doors back, folks, and get in the podcast.
What's up, guys? Beyond the Harmony, back at you again. Your host, Cecil West.
And I'm John Lippy.
Man, here we are. We've been recording so many of these episodes lately that it's insane. But like the fucking demand for the show and for the guest is insane. We could literally record an episode every day for weeks and still have a list of people that either reached out or that we've reached out to that have agreed. It's insane.
If you guys only could see the list that we have behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's crazy. The list the list is huge, and I would say controversial. Like, this list isn't, I know it is because there's already a little controversy, a couple waves from having Capone. I mentioned some future guests that we plan on having in it, and it created some waves. So it isn't your normal Bone Thugs guests, I guess.
And that's
some of the guys on the blacklist.
Yep. That's big. We're trying to go beyond the harmony. We're trying to learn things that we didn't know. And most of the good stones have all been turned up already. And everybody knows all that information. There's some other kind of stones out there that, maybe have an additional aspect that we haven't learned. And along the way, we've already heard some amazing stories. It seems like every single interview we've done has had some kind of new nugget, sometimes a whole lot of nuggets of new leads, new truths for us to go down new paths.
Yeah. I mean, and it's so weird for me. Hey, I just want everybody to know that John and I completely understand, being down for Bone, and if somebody did Bone wrong, like fuck those dudes. Like we were just talking about that today, how we get for a certain artist, and it's like anybody against them. I mean, shit, even being a Bone fan, I was like, fuck Do or Die, fuck Crucial Conflict, fuck 3-6 Mafia. Like, I was one of those type of fans. But in this situation, we're talking about going beyond the harmony. That means beyond Bone. And think of even the basis of the word harmony. Harmony is like the nice shit, the good shit. We're talking about going past that. And I'm not saying we want to know just the bad shit, but I'm saying we're going beyond what's in the front. A story can never be completely true if you've only heard one side. And that's a fact, because in everybody's rendition of a story, there's a little bit of truth, a little bit of lie, and a bunch of shit that people just don't remember exactly how it went down.
And just think if we only took Dr. Dre and Snoop's side back in the days of Dre and Eazy-E beefing, if you only took Biggie's side or just took Tupac's side when they were beefing, there's more than one side to a story. And, I think part of the reason why we do Beyond the Harmony was I did take sides back in the day. And unfortunately, it prevented my vision. It prevented me from hearing both sides and enjoying all sides. So, but that was a while back, and I've changed my ways, and now I'm all encompassing from all thoughts everywhere. All ways are the only way. So I'm open to hear all sides of the story. Plus, it would be like not interviewing Darth Vader and only interviewing like the Rebel Alliance. That's like a Star Wars reference. You know what I'm saying? Like, or if it was wrestling, only interviewing the good guys but not the bad guys. So, you know, everybody that's got the logo, if they have the logo on their album, they're part of the history. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that, you know, it's and you guys got to know too that John and I are impartial. We don't have certain guests up here because we're necessarily giving them a platform or giving them, you know, an opportunity to resell you guys. I don't give a fuck if you guys want to treat this like it's Bone Court and I have somebody up here you don't feel like it's down with the Bone community. Tell me the questions you want to know. I'll ask. If somebody did Bone wrong and you want to know why, you want to know the specific reason why that happened, let's get it. Let's get it. But that's what this is about, though. I can no longer sit around and just pussyfoot around shit that's happened and just act like it didn't happen because, you know, we're told it didn't happen. Fuck that. Fuck that.
Yeah, and sometimes we seek out guests, but a lot of times the things just fall in our lap, and it's like, well, man, there is a story here. What do we do? I mean, do we pursue it? We should.
Yeah.
So.
And we're also not just going to do guests. I mean, I have guys, you know, OG members of the BT&H board and shit like that. Like, it's the whole everything. It's the whole everything. You know, every little piece, you know, matters in some way. Some shit only matters 5%. Some shit matters, you know, 85%. Tonight, Romeo Antonio is our guest tonight. That one matters the fuck a lot, boy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I can't even imagine. I think it's going to be fireworks tonight.
It's crazy to prep. You know, when we prep, John and I prep so hard for an interview. And, you know, it means gathering a lot of questions. You guys know I always ask for your questions. I'll include your question if it's something that we haven't already written down. And it makes sense. So I get all your questions, all our questions. When we do ours, we listen to music and read and watch interviews. And, you know, I could prep a insane interview for the smallest of guests. But it's the complete opposite when you're prepping one for, you know, for a huge guest. It's like, fuck, I hope I got everything.
Yeah.
And I know I didn't. This guy is he's got over 20 years around Bone Thugs and Harmony. That's insanity. And he's been around for the hits, the classics.
We hope we got them all and I've been in these situations too where you get these opportunities like we're going to have tonight and you just wonder, did we get them all? I hope we did. There's always going to be something we miss, but that's always leaves the door open for future appearances.
I definitely know that we got the real big ones. Obviously, you guys wanted to know about Graveyard Shift, and you know that's the biggest one. I think a lot of you guys wanted to know about Graveyard Shift, but I mean we got lots of questions about Mo Thugs. We got questions about Thug Mentality 99, all kinds of stuff, man. So it's gonna be a great interview because this guy's just he is in this game, and what's great about him is he could sit here and talk for hours about Bone Thugs and Harmony. The guy is so in the game. You could have hours of a music interview with the guy and have him never talk about Bone. Like, that's how deep he is in the industry. And not just, I mean, he does movies. I mean, you know, this is a legendary motherfucker we have on the show. It's crazy. It blows my mind. And like I said, he's legendary outside of Bone. He's done a lot of work, man. Including
with legends. I mean, DMC and a bunch of others. So,
bro, Prince,
he just looks
U2.
Legendary.
Yeah, it's crazy. Before, you know, and we won't give away too much, but I mean, before he was even working with Bone, the guy is touring with legends. Prince, U2, huge acts. So, very excited. He'll be calling in here shortly. I'm keeping an eye on the prize for him. I mean, in the meantime, I'm trying to think of what's been going on.
Well, we were having some cool convos on the side today. We were trying to get to the bottom of Sleepwalkers and this Mr. Bill Collector and Bud Smokers Only. I mean, there's a lot of heated debates we've had today before the show.
Yeah, the Bud Smokers Only thing I'm going to save because I think I'm going to bang out a little video for that. You know, it may even be part of this new segment John and I are planning and hoping to premiere, but this is what we've been talking about as far as BNK and Sleepwalkers. And I think everybody can probably agree on the BNK one. And what the thought there is that's just an old Eazy-E song. Eazy-E passed, and Ruthless, Tamika, whoever remixed it, you know, added Bone, dropped the video. Made sense. You know, it was a song that was either unreleased or they were seemingly doing nothing with it, and gave it a facelift. So I think everybody can agree to that. You can go through, you can find a version that's just Eazy-E, 3 verses. I mean, pretty cut and clear. Now, the debate here is, I don't fucking believe Sleepwalkers. I don't believe, I just don't believe it. I mean, let me tell you what I do believe. Sleepwalkers, a long time, you know, talked about unreleased song. I do believe that it was talked about Bone doing a song called Sleepwalkers. The version that got released, though, it's the Eazy-E verse and the Bone Thugs and Harmony verses sound like they were recorded at completely different times. Now, it's always been talked about like this is an Eazy and Bone song. But when you listen to it, you can clearly tell that these are completely different sessions. It almost sounds like they didn't have the masters of fucking Eazy-E's verse. They had to drop this weird bomb to like bridge the fact that the beat changes a little bit. Now, I've always thought Eazy's part was done and, you know, Bone just added their shit later on. Like, they talked about making this song and it never fucking happened. And then later on, they were like, all right, we got to finish this. But it didn't really add up because it is that 94, early 95 style. So John and I are talking about it today, and he dropped a theory on me that
right.
It satisfied me pretty well.
Yeah, and my theory was just that it was probably a cut track from Straight Off the Streets of Compton. And the reason why I based that on that is that Unique may say it's a beat he made, I don't know. But DJ Unique beats generally build and they're more musical in the way they progress, whereas the Sleepwalkers beat sounds almost like a loop. And it kind of has that sound that was, it sounded like the Straight Off the Streets of Compton, maybe even late cuts from 187 It's Andre. And Eazy's verse sounds like it was recorded during those periods of time. So that's my theory, and that people at the time wanted to know if Bone had made tracks with Eazy. So, you know, maybe they slapped that thing together and said, hey, you want your Eazy-E Bone track? Here you go, Sleepwalkers.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I can take that story. You know what I mean? Because basically what that story says is Eazy-E did this song, you know, let's say 93, whatever the fuck it is, and it was just sitting on the shelf, and then when Bone came around, it was like, yo, y'all gotta drop on this Sleepwalker song. So it was like Eazy's verse is already done, so it's easy at that point to say, hey, we doing a song with Eazy called Sleepwalkers, and then drop their part. So that part I can take, you know, but it's just like it's almost insulting when people try to fucking like drive it down my face like, nah, Eazy and Bone recorded that song together. Fuck you. There's no way that that's a believable piece to me. I don't even know if like it's believable that Eazy recorded that with any intent for it to be affiliated with Bone. So I can go with Johnny's story. Johnny's story is pretty, his theory is pretty good, and yeah, I mean, I like that. The only thing that I don't like is, and this is weird to me, why did it take all the way to the collection for it to get the fuck out? Like, if you got this song with Eazy-E, yeah, the Volume 2 collection, so that's like the year 2000. Why'd it take so long? Like, what takes you that long? Why wouldn't it have made it on the collection volume 1?
Right. And why'd they sit on it?
Yeah, it just seems like sitting on that song for so long is just the wrong move, given the limited amount of Bone Thug Eazy-E tracks that exist. I don't know.
And given the context of the time, at the time, Tupac, Machiavelli, bootleg albums were a big deal. Everybody that had recorded anything with Tupac were putting things out. Same with Biggie. So you would have thought a posthumous Eazy-E song, any Eazy-E songs, would have been released. But that brings us to the whole "We're Straight Off the Streets of Compton" Volume 2. Where are all those Eazy-E tracks? So maybe it had a little something to do with more on the Eazy-E side than the Bone side, possibly.
Yeah, they talk about those being the masters that were possibly stolen in the FBI records and shit. So who knows? I don't think that has anything to do with Sleepwalkers. Like I said, that's the best argument so far, is that was already a fucking song that was done and probably just got played for Bone. Like, yo, y'all got to fucking drop on this. Who knows? I still don't understand why they didn't.
We're theorizing too. Let me just point out, we're theorizing. So, and that's the part of Beyond the Harmonies. Eventually, someone's going to come out with the story, the real deal story of Sleepwalkers, and we won't have to theorize anymore. We'll actually know the full story, not just a fan theory like mine.
Yeah. Hey, you guys tell DJ Unique you want him on the show. Tell DJ Unique you want him on the show. I believe I see Romeo has now called in. Let me go ahead and unmute him. Romeo, you with us?
Hello. Yeah.
There he is. Hey, welcome to the show, brother. Good to have you on here, man. It's been a long time coming. I've been speaking to Romeo like every night for what seems like two weeks now. I've probably been blowing up your box.
Yeah, man. We've been having a good time going back and forth, asking questions, answering questions, that sort of thing. And listen, I'll give the answers for anyone who wants to listen. I'm here.
Yeah, that's.
I got a quick question, Romeo. I've been looking at some of your photographs, and I know I've seen you like haunting me at one point in life. What were you on with DMC, like live doing something? Because I'm looking at you with the guitar here, and I'm like, I remember seeing this for like a year straight. Do you have any idea? I know you're not seeing the pictures I'm seeing, but was there a big moment where you were on TV a whole lot? Because I'm trying to remember where I'm seeing this.
Yeah, I have a lot of, let's see, I'm not sure what you're looking at, but there was a time when I was doing some shows with Bone. I was also with Run DMC. Before that I was with Prince. So, yeah, there was I don't know, maybe a 5-year straight run that I did a lot of stuff. I was on MTV doing a bunch of interviews. So there's a lot of stuff out there. It's just I never kept up with it. So I don't know where it all is. I did, track down an interview that I did with MTV like early on, early 90s. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there. Sometimes you like to Google yourself, but sometimes you don't want to really see what people say about you. And so I've been that way because I'm an artist as well. So I don't like to see what people say about me because not everybody likes me. But, I started Googling myself a couple of years ago when I started doing a Sam Cooke movie, and I got into a verbal confrontation with the management side who actually had him murdered. And so I started Googling myself then because I knew they were going to talk shit about me, and they did. So I'm not sure what you're looking at, but yeah, it started when I came back from Australia in 1990. Well, I've been to Australia so many times. I have a house there in Bondi Beach. That's where my son was born. But in 1994, I came back, and I was called to go to a session, and that's where I met Bone Thugs and Harmony. Cliff Coltrane, who's the executive at Relativity Records, and Alan Grunblatt, who's the president, actually sent me to a session. And honestly, man, and this is going to blow everybody's socks off, but I didn't even know who Bone Thugs and Harmony was. And they had already done the first 2 albums, and they had Thuggish Ruggish Bone, First of the Month, and all their hits. But because I was in the rock and roll world, and I played with Prince, Madonna, Michael Jackson, pretty much everybody you can imagine I played guitar for. I also played bass, play drums, play violin, cello, pretty much everything. And I was living in Australia, late 80s, early 90s. I went to law school, and I took the bar and then failed. So I'm actually going to take the bar again and pass, of course. But I was on tour for a long time, so there's a lot of pictures, especially the ones that have Wire Image stamped on them and Getty Image. Those are like official ones. But there's a lot of them floating around, man, that I just don't know where they all are, and I don't know where all the interviews, and I have no idea.
I swear I've seen you in a live performance somewhere, and it just, your imagery just stuck with me. And I mean, like, look, I'm like, man, I've seen this guy my whole life, and I didn't even realize it.
Yeah, man, I've done a lot of live shows. I mean, I love live shows. I mean, studio's one thing, but live you get one take, and I say that in damn near every interview I do. Live you get one take, and if you fuck that one take up, you can't say take two or take three. You get something thrown at you, and depends on how bad you fuck it up. So I love live. So after you play for Prince and Madonna and Michael Jackson, everybody wants to hire you. So there was a period of time that I went on tour with David Bowie for 2 years. I mean, there was a time period that everybody was just hiring me to play guitar and, pretty much any instrument that, see, if I go on tour, like with Bowie or with George Michael, because I actually wrote a bunch of songs with him, and I'm playing guitar and the bass player gets sick, guess what? I play bass. Or the drummer, his girlfriend hit him in the head with something, then I play drums. So that was the benefit of hiring me as a guitar. I also sing, super, super well. I don't know if you guys have ever heard any of my records, but, I signed to Polygram in Germany, and then in Australia, got gold records and all that kind of shit over there. Didn't do anything much in America. And then I met Bone Thugs-n-Harmony in 1994. I come back off of a tour in Australia, I think, with Prince. And it's a strange sort of, I tell a lot of people about it. Strange sort of thing how I met him. I went to this studio, Crossroads of the World, where they were recording at the time. And, man, I walked in the studio, and, got to remember, like, at the time, I played a lot of rock, so I'm expecting it to be like a rock session, right? So I actually, pulled up on my Harley, and I used to have long hair, and I had my guitar, 6-string on my back, those lyrics? Yeah, that was me. And so I walked in, and I walked in Studio A, and I was like, nah, this can't be the session, So Michael McDonald owned the back room, that studio, not the back room of mine, me and Brian McKnight's studio, the Crossroads of the World. So I went in the office. I was like, hey, man, I got called in for a session for Sony. I said, yep, it's Studio A. And, they knew me, not the guys in Studio A, but people at Crossroads of the World. Pretty much everybody in the studio world knew me because I was touring with Prince. So I walked in, and it's all these black dudes. And, I was probably the lightest one in there except for one guy. His name was Steve Lobel. So I walk in, and I'm light-skinned because my mom's black, and my dad's Italian from Italy. And that's where I got that fucked up name, Romeo Antonio, which, man, I can't tell you how many fights I got in because of that. My name is Raymond. Ray Romeo Antonio is my full name. But everybody calls me Rome, right? So I walk in, man, it's just dark. First of all, it's dark as fuck, and it's just smoke, weed smoke. That was fine. And then I'm looking around, and I'm seeing all these brothers. I'm like, yeah, I got to be in the wrong session, man. Because I wasn't playing, I played R&B and stuff. Before that, a lot of people don't, it's not in my, if you dig deep in my resume, you'll see that I played with Whitney Houston and, a bunch of R&B, some heavy R&B people. But not, people don't really comment on it a lot. Because if you're playing R&B, there's not a lot for a guitar player to do except
right.
That kind of bullshit, right? And that's like the last thing you want to do when you're a real guitar player. It's like, I want to turn my Marshall amp up and get down. But the R&B shit was like, oh, man, I hated those gigs. So I'm looking at these cats, and I'm like, what's this? And I didn't know who Bone Thugs-n-Harmony was, like I said. So then the white dude smoothed up to me. His name's Steve Lobel. And he's like, you Rome? Sucking on his teeth like he always does, looking at the back of his Timberlands to make sure nobody stepped on it. Steve is a different kind of character. Funny. And I was like, yeah, who are you? I'm Steve Lobel. I was like, all right, who's this? it's Bone Thugs and Harmony. I was like, who? And pretty much everybody in there laughed at that moment when I said who. And I was like, damn. And, you know, and it was a thing. Because Unique was there, DJ Unique.
Mm-hmm.
He was doing the programming and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't know anybody, man. I didn't know any guy named Archie Blaine was there, who was like a producer for Mo Thug. And I would come to know him very, very well. I mean, because it was like, man, it was kind of a wild scene because they had hit records and a lot of money was floating around. And you could just tell when you walk in the room that there was something big going on. That's why I didn't leave, to be honest with you. I was like, something's happening in this motherfucker. So, excuse my language. Otherwise, I would have looked and been like, nah. And I would have left because I would have thought it was just another R&B session. And R&B, although I do love it, I have to tell you, I love R&B, but it's not a lot for a lead guitar player to play in R&B. So, anyway, I'm probably talking too much, so go ahead.
Oh, you're good. You're good. We I always tell the guests, you're driving tonight. We're just in the shotgun position, so you can talk as much as you like. We're gonna jump in once in a while and just ask a couple questions about what you're saying. And one of them I think of immediately is in this first interaction with them. Do you remember the session? Do you remember what like album or anything they were working on during that first time you were meeting up with them?
Well, I remember hearing the song Crossroads. It wasn't a hit yet, of course. I don't think it was out yet. But I remember listening to it because it was a sample. And what happened when I started working with them, I was already working for Relativity Sony. I had done a bunch of sessions with them. And during that time period, if you remember, Puffy and everybody, they were using samples. But what I was and what I became for Bone and Mo Thug and Relativity at Sony was the guy to fix the sample so that you don't have to pay for it. Now, Puffy didn't have a guy like me, so he paid Sting. He paid everybody for everybody, every sample he did. But so when I walked in, I mean, I'm a musicologist, and I could hear something, and I could tell you what key it's in, everything. I mean, what the scale is, la, 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 right? And so I'm listening to this sample, the sample that's in Crossroads, which is an Isley Brothers song. And I'm listening to it, and I'm like, and I love the Isley Brothers. And I'm going, okay, And, it's right up there with, Earth, Wind, and Fire and all the other samples that everybody was doing. And that's actually where Crazy and I first collaborated in Thug Devotion. Because Thug Devotion is really true devotion by Earth, Wind, and Fire. But what I did at so many sessions in the 90s, was I would change the fourth chord. I would invert the chord, keep it in the same key so that people recognize it. But if you invert the chord, you don't have to pay for it, because if you play the same chords, the 4-bar and the 4 bars, if you play the same chord, you got to pay for it, and that's law. But and this is why Cliff and those guys, Cliff Culture and those guys at Sony would send me to a lot of sessions, because I'm a musicologist. I play the piano, I play everything. And so I would understand the chord progression, and if you change one of those chords in there and you invert it or whatever you do, then you don't have to pay for the sample. So I started doing that with Crazy Bone, for Mo Thug, for Bone, for anybody who they would ask me to do it, because I became sort of on staff, and I would just send in invoices every couple days. And so the first song I think that I heard was Crossroads. And I didn't recognize it because, it wasn't out yet, and I wouldn't recognize it anyway because I didn't listen to that kind of music. And I didn't like rap early on, because I'm from Queens, New York, and everybody knows that anybody from Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, you grow up with rap. So I didn't think it was special. I'm a jazz musician, rock and roll, and like I said, heavy R&B. But heavy R&B and heavy hip-hop is nothing but jazz when you break it down to its purest roots. And that's what I high school jazz band when I was in the 9th grade. And so I've been playing music all my life since I was 6, 7 years old. And so when you listen to rap, and I love Run DMC, they're my friends, but I never thought anything big of it. I thought to myself, so some dude's doing a beat, which is anybody that can wake up in the morning and tie their fucking shoes can make a beat, and that's just what I think of it, and it's the truth. I mean, when you're a real musician, to be honest with you, making a beat, okay, then what, right? So you make a beat, and then you get some guy talking over it, and the talk rhymes. And so growing up in Queens, if you could chew gum, walk, and basketball at the same time, then you could rap. And so I never thought anything big of it. In fact, I shunned it quite a bit. When Prince did Sexy Motherfucker, I was like, man, why the fuck are you trying to rap? Because he does some little rapping on a lib. I mean, he can't, Prince can do anything he wants because he's so talented. But when he's trying to do some rapping, he was trying to, sort of stay relevant or come into the new time, whatever. And, I was like, you need to get somebody to rap because you can't do it, man. You should stick to singing. And he got Tony and a couple guys in the New Power Generation, which I was a member of, and he got them to rapping, and they were real rappers. And I still didn't, care anything about it.
That phrase captured culture, though. Sexy MF.
Well, no doubt. And I'll tell you, there's nothing wrong with rap. Let me tell you. So I just wanted to tell you that so I can tell you about how I ended up respecting it and come to love it. And it's all about Crazy Bone. And I have to tell you that I love all of them dearly. Now, I am looking forward to a Wishbone solo album because Wishbone is different than all of them. A lot of them have too much shit out there. Now, Crazy Bone is one of the most talented guys that I've come across, period, whether it be David Bowie or Michael Jackson. Crazy Bone's that guy. And that's the guy that I gravitated towards in Bone Thugs and Harmony because he and I would talk music a lot, and he would do it with his mouth, but he didn't know what he was doing. Like fifths and thirds and sevenths, you have a root note, and you have a third and a fifth and a seventh. Well, that's called chord structure. Well, he would do it with his mouth, not knowing that he was actually what he was doing. What he was doing was like major musical knowledge. He didn't know. He was just doing what he thought he should do, and it was absolutely correct and 100%. And, man, the dude, he blew my mind. So, they all come up to me at different times. And listen, I love Layzie Bone, too. He's got a heart of gold. And I'll tell you, Layzie Bone has always, always looked out for me more than anybody in that group. He would always make sure my invoices got in. And, with the Graveyard Shift, he wanted me to become a member of the Graveyard Shift because Gates was out. And me and T-Rock got super, super duper tight, sleeping on the floor in the studio, making songs every day. And Layzie Bone, even before Graveyard Shift, the Poetic Hustlers, even before them, actually, it was Too True. I can't remember which one I actually first played on, but when I first started playing, he kind of tried me. He tried me hard. Layzie Bone did. He was drunk or something, and I was sitting there with the guitar, on my thigh, and I was playing something, and he was kind of wilding out that night, right? And he walked up to me, and he straight up got on me hard. He said, "Oh, you that nigga supposed to play guitar?" And I was like, whoa, like, where this shit? What, right? Because you have to remember, so I'm in there, and there's a bunch of not just Bone Thugs, but there's Mo Thug, and there's all of their buddies. So think about it. Here's this new guy. I'm the new guy, right? And I had long hair and shit, and I rode a fucking Harley, and, guitar, rock and roll dude, right? I had tattoos and torn up jeans and shit, leather jacket, shit like that. And there's all these Mo Thug dudes, and it wasn't so much them, it was their friends too. So everybody's like, who is this motherfucker that's trying to come in on our shit? So this one dude stepped to me. Well, this one dude kept fucking with me, right? It was like every time I show up, this motherfucker was always in my face. And I don't know if you guys know him, but his name is Meninsky. Meninsky's Ma, right, from the Black Hole.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
so this dude, he's from the Black Hole, right? So this dude, he was on me for like a month. And I'm like, what the fuck's wrong? So finally, me and Meninsky actually became tighter than anybody. I actually, when I did a record in, I don't remember what year it was, 97, 98, 90, I don't know. I had Meninsky actually put him on 2 songs on 2 of my records that I did. One of them was an Eric Clapton cover, and the other one, I wrote the other one. But yeah, he flowed on it, and me and him got to be super tight. But at first, man, I thought I was going to have to shoot the dude, because, there's a thing going around that everybody's talking about. Romeo carries a gun in his guitar case. That was the truth, because, shit, I didn't know who I was with. These dudes were a little, I mean, you know, if you're coming from a different country and all these brothers run up on you, I'm from Queens for sure, but you know, it's like, all right, what niggas, what they gonna act like? So what do? Carry a gun in your. That's what I always did, and a few times felt like, you know, I might have to pull it out, but I never did. But with Meninsky, because he was a big, thick, mean ass nigga back then, because I didn't know him, you know. But I mean, even knowing him, yeah, he was the nigga to knock you out first, and then maybe talk to you afterwards. So I was like, oh man, I'm gonna have to shoot this dude. But of course, I never did. Me and him became really, really tight. That's my boy. And so anyway, getting back to Layzie Bone, so I had a guitar on me, and I was playing something. I don't even remember, either one of Unique tracks or Archie's or Bobby Jones. I don't remember who it was, to be honest with you. But it was for either Bone or Mo Thug. You know, I can't remember back then. They all were sorted together because I would turn in invoices, and they would pay them. So when I came to the studio, and I could play like 5 songs a night, and I paid really good, and you know, and I just turn in the invoice. And so they start seeing me making a lot of money, right, off of them. So Layzie Bone rolled up on me, and he said, this the nigga, da-da-da, you play good, nigga, play something. And I have to tell you, most people, because he had about 10 dudes around him, right? You know, Ken Dog, I mean, yeah, you know, the cats, which I didn't know yet, but most dudes would probably freak out and not play anything and probably, you know, fuck up. But, you know, I mean, I'm a real player. This nigga wants to see me play. So I thought to myself, he's black. Let me play some funk for this nigga. Boom. I started playing some funky-ass shit for him. Just, you know, just fucking my guitar up. You know, swapping hands because I could play left hand and right hand. So I was swapping hands. I was doing all kind of little tricks and shit. And he just started, you know, with this smile on his face. And he said, oh, this nigga for real. Hey, Craig, this nigga for real. You know, that kind of shit. Of course, Craig already knew because Craig has a lot of music in his head. And when Craig saw me play for the first time, he probably knew what I knew. He probably knew. He was like, oh, yeah, man. But Layzie, being sort of, and you could tell at the time that Layzie was the leader of the pack, without a doubt. It wasn't Crazy Bone. Yep, when we had to do hooks and all that, yeah, Crazy. Hey, call Craig, you know, that kind of shit. But the leader of the pack for Mo Thug and for Bone at the time, to say, was Crazy Bone. I'm sorry, Layzie Bone. Because if anybody did anything wrong or out of place, you had to see Layzie Bone and his dudes. You know, he was sort of the, you know, Crazy wasn't the, later on when Crazy started fucking with, you know, he got a little
Thug
more.
Line and
Yeah, even before Thug Line, Crazy sort of started getting a little more, I don't know, pushy and stuff. But the Crazy has always maintained as sort of a gentleman attitude, especially around strangers. But Layzie, if you fucked up, you needed to see Layzie, and you didn't really want to see Layzie back then. Yes, the biggest heart in the world, but if you fuck up, you deserve an ass whipping, you would get one. If you were right or cool and, you know, then he would give you a hug. So after I fucked up the guitar for him, he gave me a big hug, and he's like, nigga, you with us from now on. I was like, all right then, sounds good to me. I mean, you know, they were paying crazy, great money.
You were saying earlier, you know, they always made sure you got your invoices and everything. I think one of the big, you know, questions, misconceptions maybe with Bone fans is, you know, your actual status. Were you actually signed as a Mo Thug artist, or were you, you know, independent in that situation and just working with them?
I was independent first, and I was, I don't know, like a hired hand as a, you know, a musician, and I was also an engineer. You know, I sort of did everything. I was a singer, so Crazy would sing the root note, and I would hit the thirds or the fifths. So we ended up writing a lot of stuff. So no, I was initially independent. And then when Graveyard Shift came along, Layzie wanted me to sign to Mo Thug, and I did take the contract, and I went through all the motions of actually being a Mo Thug artist, but I actually never signed the contract, which is similar to the Flesh and Bone conversation we'll have later with Tanika and Ruthless. But I took the contract, but nobody ever asked me for it after that. And, you know, I called relativity, because, you know, I used to call them all the time because I had invoices and I knew them. They're the ones who sent me on the session. So, and I'd say, hey, so what happens to my money now? Should I do this record deal thing? And they're, of course, hey, as long as you keep playing for these guys, whatever, you know, playing with them, making songs, we'll keep paying your invoices, so you don't have to do anything, you know. So I didn't. Now on tour and all that, I would get paid. You see, and that's another thing that is funky. You know, over the years, I've talked to different Mo Thug guys, Souljah Boy, and, you know, different cats that were on tour with us, and they say that they only got paid what's called per diem. You know, a weekly per diem or a daily per diem, that sort of thing. Now, I can't say for sure if that happened or not, but I know that I got paid every day. I mean, well, when me and Crazy Bone always shared a bus, because I, you know, would build a Pro Tools rig or some sort of rig in the back of our bus so that whatever tour we're on, we can always make music. And that's, by the way, how the 1999, his 1999 album was made. We pretty much made that whole record on the back of a tour bus.
Wow.
But so I always got paid. So I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm considered Mo Thug, and, you know, on a lot of paperwork that comes in, because, you know, you get what's called a rider and stuff, and you're flying, or you're going to a hotel and stuff like that, and it's Romeo Antonio, and I'm Mo Thug. So I was considered Mo Thug, but I never actually signed the record deal, the Mo Thug record deal. So that would be your answer.
I would say, you know, and this kind of goes with what you were saying, but a complaint that we often, you know, hear, and not just on the show, just in general over the years, from, I would say, especially ex-Mo Thugs, is, you know, the payments. Where you had that contract, I mean, do you know what it was like for members of the Mo Thugs as far as signing? I mean, were they getting regular paychecks and bonuses from the music and shows, or, I mean, were they, what's the situation there? Because I've heard things as far as in the later part, and I'm talking maybe Thug Line and stuff like that, that a lot of artists didn't even end up on paper signed.
Yeah, you know, listen, everybody is different and separate from everybody. And like, for instance, Ken Dog was with Layzie so much, he was probably majorly taken care of. So as far as their contract goes, now, when we would get the budget, let's just say, so let's start at the beginning, how a record deal works, and let's just talk about Mo Thug. So let's just say it was, who do you want to talk about? Let's just say not the girls, but Poetic Hustlers, right? Because I produced pretty much that whole album. Well, I produced all of the Mo Thug records back then. If I didn't produce them, then I wrote on them or played all the instruments, but I always worked on them. So if they, you know, like, they would get a budget, for instance. Now, I'm not sure what their advance, I've heard, you know, what their advances were, but a lot of people would complain that after the advance they didn't get paid, or whatever. I know they got paid on tour, because you can't take anyone on tour without giving them a per diem. It's kind of against the law, so they have to have a per diem. So now, as far as their record deal, what it read like and all that kind of stuff, I wasn't privy to that. Now, I could have been privy to that, but I didn't want to be privy to it. All I knew is, how much do I have to record a record on Poetic Hustlers? How much do I have to record a record on Graveyard Shift or whoever? You know, how much do I have to play with? You know, and so it's sort of like, what's my budget? And back in the 90s, there were huge budgets for making records in the studio. Now it's a joke. But back in the 90s and the 80s and all that, yeah, huge budgets.
I would say that
fans
consider, I was just going to say, I would consider that, you know, fans consider the Two True album, the Poetic Hustlers album, the unreleased Graveyard Shift album, and the first two Mo Thugs album is like the original classic Mo Thugs stuff. Did you work on all those projects?
Absolutely. In fact, the two Mo Thug records is me and Crazy Bone and Layzie Bone. You know, we pretty much did the tracks before we would let the artists in to actually rap on them or stuff like that. As you know, Crazy Bone does all the hooks on everything, and Layzie's on everything, because he, in my mind and in most people's mind, was the leader of the Mo Thug. And all the Mo Thug would say that too. It was always Layzie Bone. He was like the godfather sort of guy for them. But yeah, I worked on all that. In fact, if you play any of the Mo Thug 1 and 2, play a record, I could pick out the part and tell you what I played on it, because I played keyboards, bass, guitar, everything I could play on it. And those 2 records are very close to me. Now, Poetic Hustler is close to me too. You know, we slept in the studio, we had fun. Time will reveal where I'm playing the acoustic on the George Michael thing that the joint. In fact, that's going to be on the Greatest Hits Volume 2.
Oh. Yes.
Yeah, Time will reveal. So, yeah, those records and Too True, and also what were the 3 girls' name?
Trey.
Yeah,
Trey.
Those girls. I'll play on all those records. You know, if Crazy Bone was in there, then I was in there, and that's kind of how it was. Period.
By any chance, did you do pianos? Like, who did the Neighborhood Slang composition? Do you know what song I'm talking about? It's on Art of War Disc 2. I always wondered who did that.
Art of War Disc 2. You know, the whole Art of War, I mean, I was around for the whole thing, and, you know, DJ Unique is the producer on Art of War. Crazy Bone had a lot to do with Art of War. And whenever Crazy Bone had to do with anything, and this can go down in history, then I was there. Because Crazy Bone sort of, you know, he was particular about what he wanted to hear and what he wanted the sound to be like. And I was kind of working for Crazy Bone at the time directly. So, and that kind of comes up with Layzie Bone again. He comes at me after the whole thing with that situation, played the guitar, and I knocked it out. Well, I don't know, 3 years later, whenever it was, he came up to me. You know, he wasn't in a good mood. He was drinking or whatever, and he said, "I heard you ain't playing my nigga shit the way he wants you to play it." I'll never forget it. And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" See, at that point, we're all kind of friends. I was like, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, if Craig wants you to play some shit a particular way, then you got to play it like that." And it's like, you know, and he was kind of mad. He had some dudes with him. And I was like, "But if it's wrong, then I can't play that, Lay, and then you should fire me right now." Because, you know, in music theory, there's certain things that don't go together, you know, and Crazy's really great with music theory. He doesn't know it's called music theory, but he's really great with it. But, you know, if he's not around, or if one of the other Mo Thug or somebody's in the, you know, studio and I'm playing something, no, nigga, play it like this, you know, that kind of thing, and the 2 notes clash, then I won't do it. And I'll just say, nah, it don't go like that. I can't do that. Because there are things in music theory that you cannot do. I mean, you cannot do. Notes right next to each other do not ever work. Like A and A sharp. You can never play them at the same time. Ever. E sharp. Never. B sharp. Never play them at the same time. At the same time, they don't go together. So I did a lot of, you know, I would, whoever I was working with, I teach him. I try to teach him, but not in a teaching way. I'd be like, "Nah, man, check this note out. It'll sound better." And usually Craig or, you know, whoever's like, "Yeah, man, that's what's up." But I don't know, one night somebody complained about something. Don't know, can't remember, don't care. And Layzie came up to me with that same veracity that he did that first time he came up to me asking me what's up. And I was like, well, listen, there are certain things that you can't do in music. They just don't work together. And he wasn't having it. He wasn't happy about it because he wanted me to play whatever Archie or, you know, Bobby or whatever guy was producing at that moment. He wanted me to play whatever they wanted me to play because none of them could play. That's the thing about it. None of them. Everybody could program, you know, do drum beats, but nobody could play. That was the one thing that I brought to Bone Thugs Harmony and Mo Thug. I was a real player, and they didn't have one. They never had one. And so during us moving along and recording, if something's wrong, you know, just musically wrong, I'd be like, "Nah, man, it don't go like that. And, you know, this will sound better like this." "Well, nah, nigga, I want it to sound like that." You know, and they would push back on me, not because of music theory or it sounded better. It's just because they wanted to push back on me, just because. Like I said, there's always three sides to a story, and when you make a movie, there's the beginning, which is all this and that, and then there's, the act 2, which is the story arc, and then there's act 3, which is the end. It's not all good. It cannot ever always be good. There has to be some bad shit. And when you put two notes right next to each other at the same time, that's called bad shit. And so I would tell him, nah, I can't play it. But Layzie, and I have to tell you this because Layzie believed in his Mo Thug artist so hardcore. And like I said, he was the daddy, for real. He would come up on me and be mad if I didn't do what one of his Mo Thug artists said to do exactly. Even if it was wrong. I'm like, Lay, that shit is wrong. Here, listen. And I would play it for him. And Lay's not a musician. He could hear right and wrong, of course, but sometimes, I do it on the guitar, on the piano, be like, listen, man, this shit ain't right. This is right, tonally, but this isn't. Well, shit, nigga, all I know is you need to play it like my nigga said. And that would be the end of that. I'm like, all right, well, fire me, because I ain't doing it. And, the next day will come, I go back to work, go, back to the studio, and everything's fine. But he would really step up for his artists. And I have to say, I've been around the music industry a long time. I've been signed to, 5 different labels. I've worked for so many huge, huge people. I can say that Layzie Bone went to bat harder for his Mo Thug than any A&R person or any record company person I ever worked with. I never seen it before in my life. Oh, yeah.
That's so good to hear. That's so good to hear, and I'll tell you that's good to hear because, unfortunately in this situation there's a lot of bitter feelings. You hear at this point you hear a lot of bad shit about Mo Thugs, and I've always thought it was so good a bone. I mean, people don't realize that these guys were still very early in their career to be making their own fucking label. They did such a big thing so early on, and they probably were not completely prepared to have that big of a roster, but it's great to hear that they had it. They were working hard.
Glad you said that. That's important because they were artists themselves, but for them to have a new label and bring up the guys that they're, their people, that's huge to do because they were just learning themselves. So how would they know? All they knew was they was bringing, it's like a lyric that Crazy Bone said, it'll come to me any second, but it's in, if you like it. Oh, this record never came out, actually. Somebody was hitting us up on Facebook or one of those things, talking about some records that I have records that haven't come out. I have so many of them, I can't count them. He said it on one of the songs we did, and he said, if you like it, you pick up the record and make it a hit, and then when you buy it, thank you for your support. I really mean, got to make a little money over here, help the nigga over there get up off St. Clair and prepare for war. And that's what he actually did. That's in one of his lyrics. I can't remember which song it is. It's definitely one of the songs that never came out. I actually listen to that song from time to time, not for his rap. I mean, the rap is cold-blooded, but what I'm doing underneath the rap is some heavy fucking jazz. And Crazy used to love that shit. Like when I would play jazz, because jazz is very much like R&B. And honestly, Crazy Bone is an R&B singer. And don't let anybody say anything other than that. He's a great rapper, absolutely. And he's a great hip-hop artist. But what makes him great is because before he was a rapper, his parents, his grandparents, everybody in the house played heavy R&B. Major. And he listened to it all his life. That's why he knows so much about music, R&B in particular. So when you get an R&B artist that can sing their ass, and that's like Souljah Boy, Mo Thug Souljah Boy, that dude's a major singer. And then when he started, he came to the studio when I first met Souljah Boy, and he got on, I think, Mo Thug Part 1, Family Reunion or something. And he started singing. I was like, yeah, this dude, I was blown away, and I became such close friends with him. He and I ended up actually living together in Miami. First, I was living with Crazy Bone, I was living with Crazy Bone in his house in Miami, but me and Souljah Boy and Cat Cody, we had a condo right on 5th and Ocean. Ocean is the street in Miami that is right in front of the ocean. So we were at 5th and Ocean. We had a bomb-ass condo. Me and Cat Cody and Souljah Boy making bomb-ass music and just hanging out Man, I have to tell you, that was one of the better times of my life, just hanging out with two Mo Thug artists. Now, the crazy thing about it is, if you talk to, like, you know, people that know me, like my sister, people that went to college with me, or rock and roll friends of mine, or even Prince, and you say, well, Romeo says the best time he ever had was living in South Beach with Crazy Bone, Cat Cody, and Souljah Boy. Prince would swear you're lying. He would act like you didn't even say it, because he didn't respect rap at all. I mean, I'm talking at all. You know the phrase, the only reason rappers rap is because they can't sing? Well, that came out of Prince's mouth back in the 90s. And to a lot of singers, especially R&B singers, it's very true. Hip-hop artists have to express themselves in some way. And if they can't sing, they're going to rap about it. But in the 90s, it was kind of a slap in the face when you say, you're a rapper? Oh, okay, then. And you walk away. Now if you say you're a rapper, it's big shit, right? But back then, oh, you're a rapper? All right, damn, dude, I'll talk to you later. You walk away like, nigga, you can't even shine my shoes. Because it's a known fact that, and well, Prince is the king, right? Or whatever you want to call him, the prince or whoever. If you can't sing, the only reason rappers rap is because they can't sing. It's a form of self-expression. That's what singing is, truly. More than even an instrument. If you're singing, it's coming out of your body, right? I mean, you can argue that instruments are too, but it's actually coming out of your lungs, your vocal cords. That's what singing is, right? It's the ultimate expression of oneself is singing. Guess what? Here we go, 2000, 2010, bam. Guess what? Rappers rap. And that's what they do, and it's their form of expression, art expression. Now, are they doing it because they can't sing? I don't know. I know some pretty good singers, like Souljah Boy, for instance. That dude could sing his ass off. But when he was with Mo Thug, he was rapping, and he enjoyed rapping more than singing. I was like, hey, Souljah Boy, why don't we do an R&B record with Cat Cody? Because Cat Cody was even better than Souljah Boy. Cat Cody was one of the major singers I've been around in the biggest way. I'm talking about up there with Casey and JoJo and them cats, because I worked with them. Oh, you know, back when they were called Jodeci. I worked with all them cats, man. Devontae Swing, right? In fact, I was on the Pony sessions for Genuine. That's my voice box you hear.
Wow.
Whoa. Yeah, that's my voice
shit.
box. And so I'm telling you that Cat Cody would just tear up most of those R&B singers back then. I mean, that's how cold-blooded, and Souljah Boy too. So I'm like, these cats could sing. What are they doing in here with these Mo Thug dudes rapping? But I had to learn. And so now I'm going to fold you back into my learning experience with Bone Thugs-n-Harmony. So back at the beginning when I said I walked in and they were rappers, and I was like, shit, I'm in the wrong session. Couldn't wait to get out of there. Well, after I stayed there for a minute, Crazy Bone came over to me, then Layzie Bone, then Wish, or Busy, probably Busy, because Busy was out of, most of the time Busy was up on the roof at the studio, on the roof at Private Islands, Crossroads of the World. That dude was on the roof, just hanging out on the roof, looking at, the ghetto birds, which are LAPD helicopters. And I was like, what the fuck is this dude thinking about? He was out of his mind back then, I have to tell you. But let me tell you, Busy Bone's a major singer too. And when Eazy-E signed him in the Bone Thugs-n-Harmony, yeah, he was a singer. He had won a singing competition in Columbus, Ohio. He ain't from Cleveland. And so these cats walked over to me early on, day 3, day 4, something like that, our sessions. And Crazy Bone started rapping, well, kind of rapping, you know how he does. That's how he does most of his hooks, right? And then Layzie hit in on a 3rd, and Busy will come in on a 7th or a 5th, which is a higher harmony, because Busy has a high voice. And I'm like, damn, these dudes are hitting 3-part harmonies. Now they didn't know what the fuck they were doing, and that's the beauty of Bone Thugs-n-Harmony. And somebody one day is going to say this speech at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And the film that we put together was really my trying to make something for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to look up and say, hey, stupid, look at these dudes, Bone Thugs-n-Harmony. Because one day, somebody is going to say this, and they're going to say that these guys didn't know how talented they actually were. And that's the most important thing I could say to anybody, any fan, anybody that's listening or anybody that's going to talk to me in the future, the most important thing I could say, and I've said this, by the way, from MTV, whoever would interview me, the most important thing is they didn't know how talented they were. Crazy Bone would hit a root note, and by the way, Crazy Bone could hit a third, a fifth, and a seventh with a blink of an eye. He just didn't know what he was hitting. He didn't know it was a third to the root or a fifth to the root, seventh, but he would hit it dead on. So when they do it together, you have what's called a three-part harmony. That's where they get the name Bone Thugs and Harmony, and that came from Eazy-E. Eazy-E was that cat, and he was just smart, and he knew how to, they were called Bone Enterprises before. I mean, they had 3-4 names going on, all this kind of different shit. But I have to say the harmony is what makes them special. They do it not knowing they were doing it. And when I heard them do it for the first time, I stopped playing the fucking guitar or the piano. I looked down and was like, you guys are singers. Man, I almost got my ass beat the moment I said that shit. I have to tell you, and it was Layzie Bone that kind of saved me. He said, nah, nigga, nah, don't tell these niggas they singers. I was like, what? What? That's a big compliment coming from me. Man, I work for Whitney Houston and, huge Michael Jackson. These dudes are singers. Nah, don't tell them they singers, though, dog. I'm like, why not? Nah, man, they rappers. And then he would sort of do that little laugh and you give me a hug. Just don't call them singers, man. They might want to get at you.
Beyond the harmony for the fans, we celebrate. I'm good in the videos every Thursday, so join us.